It always started the same way. The wind whispering through the alleyways. The cold moonlight slipping between the buildings. The soft, distant hum of the city as it began to fall asleep. And her. A waitress with tired eyes and heavy steps, walking home alone under flickering streetlights. Her name was Rachel Holloway, 26 years old, bones aching, dreams forgotten, and heart slowly withering under the weight of a life that never gave her anything back. She worked the graveyard shift at a rundown diner on the edge of Detroit. 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, surviving off half-burned coffee and the empty thank yous of strangers who never really looked at her. Tips barely paid the rent, and loneliness was her only consistent companion. But then, one night, something changed. She heard footsteps. Not her own. Not human. Soft. Measured. Always 5 paces behind. She turned. Nothing. She walked. They followed. For nights this continued, a rhythm, a haunting. Not fast enough to scare. Just there. It was a dog. A filthy, skeletal shadow of a dog. Ribs showing. Ears torn. Fur matted with mud and city grime. He never made a sound. Never came too close. But every single night, he followed her home. And every single night, just before she reached the rusted gates of her building, he would stop, lower his head, and drop something at the curb. The first night, it was a piece of torn fabric. The second, a cracked marble. The third, a child's barrette pink, with glitter barely hanging on. And on the 6th night, a wrinkled napkin. She wouldn't have noticed it. But something in his eyes, something ancient, pleading, loyal, made her pause. She unfolded it. Inside, scribbled in bright crayon, was a child's drawing, a red-haired girl holding hands with a dog under a crooked sun. Below, one name, Ella. Rachel dropped to her knees. If you believe in kindness, second chances, or the loyalty of animals, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales. Your support helps us tell stories that truly matter. That name Ella wasn't just a coincidence. It was Rachel's younger sister. Taken from her 2 years ago by the foster system. Rachel had tried. God, she had tried to keep them together. But the courts didn't care that she was barely scraping by. That she had no one left. That she loved that little girl more than anything. All they saw was a poor waitress with no stability and no suitable environment. Ella was placed into the system. Rachel never stopped grieving. And now, somehow, this street dog, this ghost, had brought her a message. A clue. A miracle? That night, Rachel didn't walk into her building. She turned to the dog and said, "Show me." And the dog did. They walked for nearly 40 minutes through winding streets and quiet neighborhoods Rachel had never explored. The city looked different with the dog leading, less threatening, more alive. Like the street knew something she didn't. Finally, he stopped in front of an old, leaning house. Lights off. Fences broken. But the moment they arrived, a light flickered on in an upstairs window. Then, the door creaked open. An elderly woman stepped out cautiously, but her eyes softened when she saw Rachel. Rachel explained everything, the drawings, the dog, the name Ella, in trembling words. The woman didn't interrupt. She simply turned and opened the door wider. And there, in pajamas, hair messy from sleep, stood a little girl with red hair and wide eyes. "Rachel," she whispered. And Rachel ran to her. Tears. Laughter. Shock. Apologies. And that overwhelming sense of finally. The woman, Mrs. Manson, was kind. She explained how Ella had arrived a few months ago. Quiet. Withdrawn. Drawing constantly. Staring out the window for hours. And then the dog had shown up. Barking. Scratching at the gate. He refused to leave. Slept outside Ella's window. Mrs. Manson had eventually let him in. From that day on, Ella smiled again. He brought her back to life, she said. Rachel brought the dog home that night. She didn't ask for his name. She already knew it. Leo. Leo didn't act like a stray anymore. Once he was inside Rachel's apartment, it was as though he belonged. He knew where the food bowl should go. He laid at her feet like he had done it for years. But here's the twist. Leo wasn't a new dog. He was her dog. When Rachel was 10, her family had adopted a puppy. Sweet, golden brown, with big eyes and an even bigger heart. She named him Leo. But during a chaotic move, Leo had run away. For years, Rachel assumed he was dead. He wasn't. Over the next few weeks, Rachel's life transformed. She reopened her case with child services. Fought with the system. Collected letters of support. Took parenting classes. And through it all, Leo was there. When she cried, he rested his head in her lap. When she stayed up late writing letters, he laid by the door, guarding her peace. When she went to work, he waited outside the diner, tail wagging, like a sentinel. Customers began noticing. People left tips for the dog. One woman gave Rachel an envelope with $100 inside, saying, "He reminds me of a dog I had when I was little. He changed my life. Maybe he's changing yours." He was. Rachel eventually won custody of Ella. They moved into a small house with peeling paint but a big backyard. Leo had grass to roll in. Ella had her sister again. Rachel had a reason to breathe. One rainy afternoon, Rachel was organizing old boxes when she found a dusty photo album. Inside, a Polaroid of her and a puppy. Leo. Her mother had written on the back, "Rachel and Leo, summer 2009. Tears came freely. Leo hadn't just wandered into her life. He had returned to it. Years passed. Rachel quit the diner. Started a pet care business called Leo's Path. It became a hit. Clients were drawn not just to the name, but the story. Rachel told it at shelters, schools, fundraisers. Leo became a local legend. When he turned 17, they threw him a party at the park. Children made signs. A shelter named a room after him. The mayor sent a letter. Leo didn't understand the attention. But he loved the cake. And Rachel loved him. One morning, Rachel woke early. Sunlight spilled through the window. Ella was still asleep. And Leo? He was lying peacefully by the garden door, eyes closed. Breathing soft. Rachel knew. She sat beside him, her hand over his heart. Ella joined her minutes later. They stayed like that for hours, not crying, not speaking, just honoring him. They buried Leo under his favorite tree. Carved into a stone nearby. Leo, the dog who came home. Even now, years later, Rachel still tells the story. How a forgotten dog found her again. How he brought her sister back. How he changed everything, not with barks or tricks, but with quiet loyalty. And love. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Special request, share your own animal story in the comments. Has a dog, cat, or any creature ever changed your life? We'd love to feature your story in a future video. Let's inspire each other.